Hello, students, and anyone else who might be watching this video. This is called TV Revenue Streams and Streaming. It does build upon some previous video lectures that I've done for JMS 200 about television history and the way television operates. But even if you're starting from scratch and you haven't seen those, hopefully it'll make sense. It's a lot of information, but I'm trying to break it down and cover the main points as clearly as possible. So hopefully you get something out of this. Here we go. I'm going to be looking at my watch every now and then to try and help myself keep on time. A scholar named Amanda Lotz came up with this way to categorize television history, so thank you to Professor Lotz. First off, we have the network era, mid-1950s to about the mid-1980s. There were three major broadcast networks, ABC, CBS, NBC. We later did get the Fox broadcast networks. That's distinct from Fox Cable now, but there is a Fox broadcast network. These entities provided much of the programming for the United States. The content is provided free with advertising. So the ads are what subsidize the cost of television, and the viewer doesn't have to pay for it. That's still true today. You don't have to pay for broadcast television, but there is very limited control that the viewer had historically. You could turn off the TV or change the channel, but that was about it. And just as a refresher, when we talk about networks, these TV broadcast networks, it's not really one single entity, although we talk about it like that. In reality, it's a bunch of local affiliates. These are the small stations located sort of in each urban area. That is the entity that actually transmits over the airwaves the television signal into your home. And the entity that has the license from the FCC to broadcast is the local station, not the big broadcast network. This is a map showing the NBC radio network in 1937. It was actually two networks, but it illustrates the point of what I'm talking about. When we talk about these networks, they're really sort of arrangements of different nodes on a map. We call them affiliates when it comes to broadcasting. The affiliates are the people that are transmitting the program to you. Now, this is the old economics of TV. Some of this is still true, but I think it's useful to know the way the industry was structured and what has influenced where we are today. Television networks don't actually make the product. Sometimes they do, but historically they did not. They would license the product, in this case television, from a production company. Think about the production companies like the farm. That's where the food originates. You might go to a grocery store to get it, but it has to originate somewhere. In this case, it originates with the production companies. So the television networks license, that means they give money to these production companies in exchange for showing their product, which are original television shows. Now, it gets confusing because the broadcast networks can own their own production companies as well, but let's just operate on the assumption that the broadcast networks are licensing the content from a production company. Then the network pays the local station, your local affiliate, says, hey, I've got this great content. I've got this really good stuff. I will give it to you and I'll pay you money, and then you just retransmit it over your airwaves. And so if a network, let's say NBC as an example, can get all these stations together, then NBC can go to a car company, people who make motion pictures, people who make detergent, whatever, and say, hey, I can put your television commercial in front of every American on their television screen because I've got this network of distribution. I've got a distribution network to get your commercials out. That's what broadcast networks really are. They are a network for carrying advertisements into your home. The television content exists so that the commercials have a place to live. That's why television exists, so that they have a place to put the television commercials. Okay. Now, if NBC is paying all these local affiliates to carry its product, where does NBC get the money from? Advertisers, okay? And historically, national ads charge a lot of money. There's a lot of money to be made for national ads, and we've gotten to the point where there's 15 minutes of commercials in an hour of television. More or less, I mean, it can vary, but that's basically it. 15 minutes of commercials within an hour of television, okay? And that's where NBC wants to be making its money. Shows that are not originally made to air first run on broadcast television, like the CSI shows or other, big budget shows like that, are called syndicated shows. They are marketed to individual television stations to fill up their schedule, as it were. It used to be that you needed 100 episodes of a show. That was about 5 years worth of a TV show, a scripted television show. And once you had 100 episodes, you could sell a package of reruns. These are older shows now. It's already aired once on television. Now it's the rerun. You could sell 100 episodes to your local TV station. And then once those air, once a day, 5 days a week, after 20 weeks, it starts over. The cycle starts over. Now you can syndicate with far fewer. We've seen a big change in television as to what constitutes a season of a TV show. It could be as few as 6 episodes. Doesn't have to be 20, 22 episodes. Now, the distinction here, now we're get to some inside points here, is that the production company makes the money, not the broadcast network, okay? Warner Brothers, for example, created the show Friends. The show Friends airs on NBC. NBC pays for Friends. They pay a very, very high premium for it because it was a very, very highly rated show. That cost that NBC was paying may have paid off 75 to 80% of the cost to produce Friends. So when then Warner Brothers sells it in the secondary market, the rerun market, the syndicated market, as we technically call it, that's like extra money. The cost to manufacture that product has been covered, not entirely, but mostly covered. So when you put it in the syndication market, you're getting a lot of money. And then 4 years later, syndication deal is done, and then you sell it again, then you sell it again. And something like I Love Lucy has been sold for decades. That's just like a money machine. The cost to create that content has been recouped long ago, but you're still selling the same thing over and over again. So that's genius. If you can create a TV show that people will watch over and over and over again, decades later, that's a way to make money. I mean, that is just a fabulous way to make money. If you can create that type of content, easier said than done. Just as a way of illustrating here, we have Big Bang Theory, popular comedy. I'm assuming many of y'all know about the Big Bang Theory. Here's an article from 2019 when it went into syndication. HBO Max paid the exclusive streaming rights. So HBO Max was the home for the Big Bang Theory when it comes to streaming. And then Warner Brothers Television also paid for it to be on TBS. So there was cable syndication rights as well. And it was very profitable. Just HBO Max alone made over $425 million just for a couple of years. They're only going to pay for that for a couple of years. When that syndication deal is up, then Warner Brothers can then sell that again, Big Bang Theory again. So if the show continues to be viable and continues to draw an audience 10 years from now, when you have kids or grandkids or whatever, the Big Bang Theory could still be on TV and still making money. So that's why you would love to create a TV show that has many episodes and goes into syndication. Reality shows, just be quick, reality shows do not syndicate well, okay? Reality shows are very, very popular. The Bachelor is a very popular show. Dancing with the Stars is popular. What was that other game show? Oh, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire was like a monster hit when it came out. So reality shows do extremely well on social media. People love to go online and talk about what happened and what she did and he should have done this, etc. But they do not syndicate well because people don't like to watch reruns of reality shows. I know there are some cable networks that have a lot of reality shows and rerun them, but that's a different financial model. That's a whole different animal. For the most part, people don't watch reruns of reality shows for the same reason people don't watch reruns of sporting events. At a certain point, maybe it becomes classic, but for the most part, you don't watch last year's Padres games. Now, next era of television, we're getting into the multi-channel transition era. Okay, now we're seeing some change. We are seeing some audience control with the video cassette recorders and then DVRs. Remote controls allow people to change the channel more frequently. And we also have more channels, so there's more channels to change around. Cable has a different sort of financial structure. We'll talk about that in a second. And viewers are able to exert a little more control over what they're watching. How does cable work financially? The technical term for a cable company is MSO, multiple system operator. This is because a cable company has franchises in many different cities. They're technically considered distinct, but they're really all one. You know, Cox Cable in San Diego considers its own thing, but Cox has franchises in everywhere anyway. Just know MSO is a cable company. Cable does make money from advertising, but that's not really where they make all their money. The money comes from viewers, just like you. Subscription fees. There's a monthly fee, which could be very, very high, that you pay to the MSO in exchange for a bulk of channels. You cannot a la carte your channels. You cannot pick your channels a la carte. You cannot say, I don't want ESPN. I only want Home and Garden. I only want Turner Classic Movies. I don't want Nickelodeon. You get the chunk. You know, you get this 30, and if you pay a little bit more, you're going to get another 30. And the reason they do that is some of these smaller channels would not survive on their own. They only survive if they're bundled together. Okay. That's the way subscription fees work. And they've gotten out of control. Now, here's where we're really inside baseball now. Okay. A carriage fee is something that an MSO pays to a cable network, and it's a fixed rate per subscriber. Viewership is irrelevant. That is a bizarre but interesting point. If something like CNN, just say hypothetically, gets $1 per subscriber, say there's a million people in San Diego who have cable. Hypothetically, a million people in San Diego have cable. CNN is part of the package. When you turn on that grid to list your channel, CNN is there. CNN is going to get $1 million. They're going to get $1 per viewer, whether or not the viewer actually watches the channel. That is bizarre, but that's the truth. Okay, that is bizarre, but it's the truth. So a cable network just has to remain viable and attractive enough that the MSOs put it in as part of their package. It doesn't have to do monster numbers. So VH1 and MTV can show reruns of reality shows because it doesn't matter if people are watching that channel or not. It just has to exist on that cable lineup. Odd, but true. Now we have something very similar. It's called a retransmission fee. Carriage fee goes to a cable network. A retransmission fee goes to your local broadcast entity. Okay. Here in San Diego, back to CBS. CBS is a local station. Local broadcaster transmits over the airwaves. When people historically were signing up for cable, they said, I don't want just cable channels. I want to watch live local TV as well. Even though you can receive those signals free over the air, people, for the convenience and simplicity, said, I want all my TV channels to come through one thing, one cable, one wire thing coming right into my home. So if I'm paying the cable company for all these channels, why don't you put the live local channels in there as well? Those channels said, we want to get paid just like you're paying the cable, MTV, VH1, ESPN, just like you're paying them, you got to pay for our product as well. But it's called a retransmission fee. Because the signal is already being transmitted over the airwaves, the MSO is taking it, scooping it up, and reselling it to a consumer through its own pipeline, and the money goes to the local broadcast station. Here is a chart. This is back from 2019, but the industry likes to keep this stuff secret. No one wants to talk too openly about this kind of stuff. But just to, for illustration, to see what we're talking about, here are carriage fees associated with different channels. AMC is 98 cents for that channel. CNN 195. I was saying $1. CNN 195. ESPN $6. ESPN has by far the highest carriage fee. I mean, it's like off the charts in comparison to everybody else. Because if you like sports, I think ESPN has Monday Night Football now. I mean, if you want to watch sports, if you want to watch these big premier games, you have no alternative but to watch ESPN. So ESPN can charge more than anybody else. And there's no cable company that's going to debut a service that doesn't have ESPN as part of it, or at least, as an option for some higher add-on package. And then we got the World Fishing Network over here, 14 cents. Not a lot for the World Fishing Network, but probably not the most attractive content. I really don't want to watch people fish. Now this chart shows, ignore the stuff on the right. That's even confusing for me. This illustrates who's paying this fee. This illustrates the growth of the retransmission fee over time. There was a period of time where it didn't exist at all. And then 2006, it's $214 million for the year, $214 million for the year. Now this is 16 billion. This is more than 16 billion. So we've gone from very, very low numbers up to 16 billion in a pretty short time span. This is 2024. So some people believe that the retransmission fee is the only thing keeping the television industry alive, that very few people are watching traditional over-the-air television broadcasting. And the only reason that it survives is because these MSOs are paying these retransmission fees, which makes sense to me. So the retransmission fee is maybe an artificial crutch to keep this legacy form of media alive, but they still exist. They still exist. Now we're in the post-network era. People don't know what's going on. There's all these changes going on. You know, multiple financial models, multiple ways to consume product. This says millennials are not watching TV. Apparently, are not using spell check. Okay, streaming is changing the industry. Streaming is a different way to reach the consumer. It's not cable, it's not broadcasting. You are paying for a certain library of content to be streamed into your house according to your needs at your own time schedule. It's on-demand programming. You pick what you want. It comes in when you want it. And each streaming service has its own distinct library content. Usually the content, they try and get exclusive content only on their service. Sometimes they're affiliated with a production company. Sometimes they could be affiliated with an old-fashioned broadcast network as well. But this is kind of where the industry is going. On one hand, streaming is a challenge to older models of television like cable and broadcasting because it's competition. But then on the other hand, you could say it is actually a new market. It is a new place to dump or sell your syndicated content. So it creates a demand for programming. There are more things for people to watch. So I think there's positives and negatives to it. On one hand, if you're a broadcast network, streaming service is a challenge. But then on the other hand, hey, if you've got a hit TV show like Friends, you know, it's another place to sell it. It is another place to sell your content. SVOD is a term that we use for this type of financial arrangement, subscription video on demand. Netflix really pioneered that this would work when they introduced House of Cards, which was a remake of a BBC show, but it was original, at least for the United States. And many people signed up for Netflix because they wanted to watch House of Cards, which was not available anywhere else. So for that reason, it does have a big place in television history. We also have the growth of binge viewing, which streaming makes possible because you can watch what you want when you want it. You can consume 7, 8, or even 10 episodes. You could stay up all night and watch the new season of Stranger Things if you wanted to. So consumers like this way of consuming content. I think as a distribution method for producers, it presents some questions. I think the once a week model of releasing a show, the old-fashioned traditional broadcast method of releasing a show maybe makes more sense because you have a week to build hype, a week to build anticipation. Now with social media, there's a week for people to talk online about it. I can't believe that happened. What's going to happen next week? So I think we're seeing kind of a move away from shows dumping out all their content all at once, going back to the once a week model. And then when a season is over, again, a season could be 6, 8, 10, 12 episodes. Once the season's over, all the episodes are there for you to consume as you want. But we're going back to this older model of releasing things once a week because we have a week to figure out who shot JR. Another term that's gaining some traction is AVOD, advertising supported video on demand. This is content where maybe people don't pay or maybe pay a very, very low subscription fee for, but some of the cost comes from advertising as well. YouTube, I mean, you could pay for YouTube. There are services you could pay for, but most people just watch it for free and it comes with ads. So I think YouTube shows another model of television that we're going to see in the future, AVOD, advertising supported video on demand. And I'm going to end right here. I mean, I could talk about streaming for another hour, but I think I've talked enough. I'm going to show a video that kind of recaps the different revenue streams that I've already gone over. And there's going to be another video about streaming and some current stuff that's going on as well, but I think that's enough for now. Okay, I'm going to do a little illustration on the back of this. There's a story I printed out about Black Adam. I'm going to do an illustration on the back of this paper to illustrate some of the stuff that I just went over in the video. But quick shot of my office. There's an Elvis tapestry right there. That's a photo of some Marconi wireless operators. I'm a big geek for old-time radio. And front page, that's a real front page. It's not a reprint. San Diego paper from the moon landing. Okay, here we go. First off, this is how TV works, okay? First off, we have different production companies over here, okay? I'm going to write production. This is like the farm. This is where the stuff is made. Like the farm is where food is made. This is where the TV is made, okay? And over here, we have the TV viewer. Let's put a TV. Let's put a TV. Old-fashioned TV. Okay, this person wants to watch TV. I would like to watch some TV. How does stuff get from the farm to the TV? Okay, here's the way it used to work. Okay, broadcast networks. These are the old school broadcast networks. We have ABC, CBS, NBC. We also have Fox. Fox has a broadcast network as well as a cable network, okay? So now we're talking about the broadcast networks. This is old school terrestrial broadcasting, okay? So the content goes here, then it goes to the local affiliate, right? I'm going to write affiliate here, okay? Affiliate. Local affiliate, then it goes to the TV viewer. So the affiliate is actually the one broadcasting, and the money comes this way. The broadcast network pays the production companies. It licenses their content. So this is like you're paying the farm for the stuff that they produce. And the broadcast network also pays the local affiliate that said, hey, carry our content. This person, the TV viewer, is not paying. This is free, okay? The money comes from advertising. Okay, then we got these things called cable companies. And I'm going to write here MSO. The MSO. The MSO is the technical name for a cable company. Okay, now we get these cable channels. I'm going to put MTV, that's a big one. VH1, ESPN. Okay, these are cable channels now. Okay, the cable channels pay these people for content. Okay, these people pay these people. The MSO is paying, and then now the viewer is paying. Okay, that's the way. So you pay a subscription fee. The MSO pays a carriage fee. However, here's where it gets complicating. The MSO is also paying the local TV stations to retransmit their signal, okay? So when you get cable, let's put an arrow here. I know this is confusing. When you're getting cable, you're getting content that comes from cable, comes from the cable companies, and it's also coming from the local affiliates as well, because you can get live local TV programming through your cable package. And I'm putting satellite TV in here as well. Okay, that's the way this thing works, all right? But it starts all over here with the production companies. They're the people that are making the content. Now, here's where it gets confusing, if it wasn't already confusing. With streaming, now we get these streaming services. I'm going to put Roku, Netflix, Hulu, okay? These people, content can also go there, and now it can come directly here through the internet. But again, we have money. This person now has to pay this person. So money is coming from here, going to here, and then these people are also paying over there as well. And just to make it really confusing, the production company can sometimes own their own streaming service. You've got like Disney Plus, for example. You got HBO Max, that's affiliated with Warner Brothers. So there's different ways, there's all different ways, so there could be a direct line straight here. There's all different ways from the content to come from the farm all the way over to the viewer. When it comes to streaming, the viewer has to pay for it. When it comes to cable or satellite television, the viewer has to pay for it. When it comes to good old traditional broadcast television, the viewer doesn't have to pay for it. But anyway, this is all the ways that the stuff can come to the viewer. Okay, that's it. Wrapping up the lecture. Hope you learned a little bit of something. I'm now signing off.